attitudes are important, right? Um, and here's the thing of this, and this has been on this is on me a lot, but just particularly this week, and this with this scripture I'm going to read to you to kind of get you in the same frame of mind, maybe about how important relationship, right? Because we've all had people that kind of bounce in and out of our lives, or maybe we've bounced in and out of someone else's lives. Um, and we haven't caught up with them for a while, and maybe we see them and they're not anywhere close to where they were. Does that make sense? Um, I think about this specifically about people that will come into, and I'm not just talking about our church here, this building, I'm talking about the church, right? Capital C. People that come in and out of the church, and they stay for a while, and they seem to have some measure of recovery or progress, and then maybe they drift away, and it's almost like, if you when you catch a fish and it's on the bank, if it flops back in the water, it doesn't just stay in the shallow water; it goes deeper than it was. And I see that in so many people's lives, right? Where it's like when they get out of a certain circle of relationship and they go back into deeper problems than what they had. And it comes back to relationship. It really does. I mean, the struggles in our lives, look, there's things that happen that are external that we have no control over. I understand that. How we react, how we respond, and really how we heal and move forward is largely based on our relationship, who we have around us, our circle of support. And as I was reading Hebrews 10, let me just read this to you. This is Hebrews 10:23 through 5. It says, "Let us hold tightly without wavering to the hope that we affirm, for God can be trusted to keep his promise. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works, and let us not neglect our meeting together, as some do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near." Now, look, it's not saying that gathering together, that the fellowship of church is what's going to rescue you. I'm talking about the importance, how important that is. In Proverbs it says this, and this is basically just the Cedar County translation, the version, "You are who you run with." Who we surround ourselves with so greatly affects the decisions we make. It affects the way we respond to those decisions. It reflects the way that we heal. Right? I think about a time in my life when this was not part of my life. I do not want to go. And having relationship and fellowship with other believers helps keep me. There's an importance in that. So in saying that, I'm glad you're here. I just want us to be in the mindset of being thankful for those things that God brings into his life, for those people that he brings into our life. Not take it for granted. To ask him for discernment in making the decisions that keep us. Pray together. Father God, you are so good. God, we so often look at you and we try to define you by the condition of our circumstance. God, if we're having trouble or problems or issues or obstacles, we want to say that it's because you're just being mean or not protecting us. But God, you are good regardless of what's going on in our life. That is a truth that transcends our situation. Father, I just pray that we would not blame you for our decision. God, that we wouldn't hold bitterness or anger against you for things that have happened in our lives that maybe didn't go the way we wanted them to. Father, I pray that we would learn to trust you, to fully and completely trust you. That we can look past the difficulty or the trouble that we're up against, Father. See you, see it from your perspective. So grateful for the time that we can gather freely in a nation where we can proclaim your name. God, what a blessing. Pray your Holy Spirit will be over every aspect of our time together this morning as we sing psalms of praise to you, as we bring our burdens and our praises to you in prayer, as we look at the truth of your word together, Father. I pray that this would please you. This is for God. We all have struggles of one kind or another. Some are physical. We're dealing with illness or disease or diagnosis that can't seem to get around. Father, we know that you thank you for that. God, there are many of us that are dealing with tensions in relationships or broken relationships, having emotional struggle or trials. Father, you heal that as well. You are a God who renews. Father, we pray that your hand would be on these relationships, situations struggle with. God, that we would have the peace of your knowing that you, God, we need spiritual healing. Individually and as families, as a church, as community, as a nation, desperately. Father, it seems like we are surrounded by darkness, by wickedness, by bad decisions, Father. There's political division, there's racial division, religious division. Above all these things, we can still be thankful to you, Jesus, that you paid our debt. You paid the debt of sin that we never could, that you provided the way to the Father, the way to have right standing. Pray that we would never take it for granted, that we would always be thankful, joyful. Father, I pray that as we deal with those around us, Father, whether it's family members or coworkers or friends or someone we run into at the store, pray that we would represent you. We're called to be your ambassadors, and I pray that the things that we say, the things that we do, would bring honor and glory to your name. That we would not misrepresent you. We would not misrepresent. We wouldn't misrepresent what it is to be. Father, it is so easy for insert our own opinions or our own ideas. God, I just pray we would remember that your thoughts are not ours, your ways are not ours. Everything about you is so far above what we can even fully comprehend. Not trusting. Pray that you would remind us that as we do struggle, God, that you can bring all things together for good. Thank you for the truth of your word. Thank you for the gift of life. Thank you for grace. Passion, mercy, forgiveness, kindness, tenderness, gentleness, self-control, all the things that you bring that are good. Honor you, we praise you, we love you. Thank you. Pray together in the name. Well, Charles said I might have something to say. Um, he's right, I do. We've been reading the Gospels together. Remember last year we went from Genesis to Revelation. We read the entire Bible together and worked through that as church. And then, so this year we've just been in the Gospels. We're in the repeat, right? We've been doing that this first 6 months where we read the four Gospels and then reread them. And then we're going to be going into the rest of the New Testament for later in the year. But we've been looking at the teachings of Jesus. Kind of chronologically, if you remember in the 1st of January, we started in John chapter 3, and Jesus met with Nicodemus, and what an amazing thing that is. And we've been looking at the progression of Jesus' earthly ministry, the things that he taught. And so last week we were in Luke chapter 15, and we talked about the prodigal son. And it wasn't just about being found from being lost, it was really about our misunderstanding of what God's love is. The love of the Father, right? We so often have taken this definition of love, and I don't know whether it's a human thing, whether it's an American thing, what it is, but we've really misinterpreted or misunderstood what love really is. Because true love is not just acceptance of everything, it's not tolerating everything, it's not allowing us to do what we choose to do. True love has boundaries. And here's the thing, love does not remove the poison. And these relationships that we have that are toxic and there's things that are going on, there can still be love in that relationship. Love doesn't remove the poison, grace does. So if love is the noun, grace is part of the verb. One of the byproducts, one of the actions of love. And so God's love is unconditional. He does love each one of us the same amount, unconditionally, regardless of what we do or how we respond. But he has offered grace to us that is conditional. And the condition is that we accept it. That's it. Right? And so we're on the heels of that. Jesus has just taught this. Remember, he went to the Pharisee's house, and this is backstory for like 3 or 4 weeks. He went to the Pharisee's house, and he had the meal, and he healed the man, and then he spoke to the host, and he spoke to the people that were there, and then he went outside and was speaking to the multitudes, talking about the sheep that was lost, the 99 and the 1 and the coin, and then he went into the prodigal son. So I just want you to have all of that, right? We're building on top of that with today. We're in Luke 16 today. And this was kind of a difficult passage for me, largely because of how I think we normally look at this. Now, some of you are thinking, well, we know you're abnormal. That's true, right? I don't think about things a lot of the same way that maybe even I used to, right? Somebody said the other day, I was talking about how much Dar might roll her eyes in my presence. Somebody said they can't see her doing that. And I'm like, well, you haven't been around me very long. But hey, guys, this is okay. I'm stepping outside of the message here for just a second. Just as an encouragement to the men, I have discovered that the eye roll is approval. Okay. We're going to pray again, and then okay. So I think differently. Let's just start there. Okay. Let's go into Luke 16. So this is. We're going to be talking about the rich man and Lazarus. Okay, now some of you know this passage, some of you don't. We're going to read the entire passage, and then I want to look at some of the teachings. So I just want to start. This passage starts in verse 19 of Luke chapter 16. So it's Luke 16:19. I do want to read a couple of verses prior to that, and then I'll jump into 16. So I'm going to read starting with 14, verse 14. Luke 16, verse 14. So the Pharisees, who were lovers of money, heard all these things, and they ridiculed him. Okay, he's just finished the story of the prodigal son, and he's talking about the wealth that the youngest son wanted, and really the wealth that the oldest son lived in and kind of took for granted. Okay, so it says the Pharisees, who were lovers of money, heard these things, and they ridiculed or scoffed or mocked him. And he said to them, "You are those who justify yourselves before men, but God knows your hearts. What is exalted among men is an abomination. And then he says this: there was a rich man who was clothed in purple and fine linen, and who feasted sumptuously every day. And at his gate was laid a poor man named Lazarus. Let me just say this real quick. This is not the Lazarus of Bethany that Jesus resurrected. Okay, this is different Lazarus, different name. At his gate was laid a poor man named Lazarus, covered with sores, who desired to be fed with what fell from the rich man's table. And moreover, even the dogs came and licked his. The poor man died and was carried by the angels to Abraham's side. The rich man also died and was buried. In Hades, being in torment, he lifted up his eyes and saw Abraham far off and Lazarus at his side. And he called out, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus to dip the end of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am in anguish. But Abraham said, Child, remember that you in your lifetime received your good things, and Lazarus in like manner bad things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in anguish. Besides all this, between us and you a great chasm has been fixed, in order that those who would pass from here to you may not be able, and none may cross from there to us. And he said, Then I beg you, Father, to send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, so that he may warn them, lest they also come into this place of torment. But Abraham said, They have Moses and the prophets, let them hear them. And he said, No, Father Abraham, but if someone goes to them from the dead, they will repent. And he said to him, If they do not hear Moses and the prophets, neither will they be convinced if someone should rise. So there's a lot going on with this. And normally what I have heard, this passage is taken, and we look at this and we think, oh, so this is a commentary on the afterlife. This gives us insights into what's going to happen or how it's arranged or the structure. Or I'm not going to say there's not some things we can learn from this, but I don't believe that was the main purpose to teach this. I'm more interested not in a commentary in the afterlife, but instruction for what did he mean with this? First off, we need to understand that when he was talking to the Pharisees, remember it said that they were lovers of money and they were mocking or ridiculing him. From the Pharisees' point of view, they considered wealth to be proof of a person's righteousness. Catch that? They considered wealth to be proof of righteousness. And so when Jesus is explaining these things, when he's talking about the rich man, they've already got it locked in their mind. He's talking about somebody righteous. And then he starts describing poor Lazarus, and not only did he not have anything to eat, he was covered in sores. I mean, Jesus just painted this picture of this man that would have been repulsive to the Pharisees. And you'll notice that the rich man, okay, let me say this first. The rich man was not in torment because he was rich. This is not a commentary on the righteousness or the wickedness of wealth. Okay? The poor man wasn't in heaven because he was poor. That's not the point. Okay? The point was their heart condition. So the rich man had issues. Why? He's very wealthy. He's living in opulence in this amazing place. Lazarus was there daily. It says the man allowed him, right, to stay at his doorstep. So here's the thing. The rich man had the opportunity to provide for Lazarus, and all he did was say, well, I'm going to let him stay at my doorstep so somebody can give him something. Now, there's a certain amount of arrogance that goes with that perspective. What's interesting is as Jesus is telling this story, here the rich man is in torment. He still maintains that arrogance. He tells Abraham, hey, make Lazarus come and bring me a drink. I'm miserable. Let's have Lazarus do it. The man's character was already set. It didn't change. So this isn't about his financial condition, it's about his spiritual. And really, here's the thing. I want to talk about stewardship today because that's really what this is in large part. Jesus is saying, look, this rich man had opportunity, he had resources, he had provision, he had abundance. What did he do with it? He did not help those who needed it. Didn't help those. Now, stewardship is defined as what? And when we think about stewardship, when we think, well, it's kind of like taking care of something that's not ours. That's a pretty good definition, actually. That's really what it is. Stewardship is having a responsibility for something that is not. Here's what's interesting. God has given us stewardship. Everything that you have in your life, not yours, His. We talked about this in times past when we talked about giving. You hear the phrase, well, I'm giving back to God. No, that's not true. You're just taking your hand off of some of what He's given you. It's all His. It's all His. So everything we deal with in our lives is an act of stewardship. What are we doing with it? See, as Americans or maybe humans, I don't know, I've always put everything from an American perspective because that's what we are, right? We have this Western church philosophy kind of just ingrained in us. So when we think of stewardship, or maybe I should say when I think of stewardship, I'm usually thinking of finances. But there is so much more that goes. Here, I made just a short list of some of the things that we have stewardship responsibility. Just to kind of get our minds out of that checkbook, right? Out of that box. Our finances, yeah, we definitely have that to be stewards over. What about our time? Am I a poor manager of time? Don't raise your hands, right? Don't point either. Time management. Are we poor managers of time? How are we stewarding the time that we have? What about our talents and our abilities? What are we doing with those? And I'll just tell you, a good portion of my life, many of you know my story, but most of my working adult life, I was applying my talents and abilities to build my kingdom, not God. I was not stewarding that well. Responsibility because it was someone else's, it was God's, and I wasn't letting Him have that credit. These are mine. I'm going to do with God, you do with the godly things. I'm going to take care of what's in my life. That is such a blind perspective. For our talents and our abilities. What about our relationship? You ever think about a relationship? Something to be. It's a gift. Those relationships have been given to us. Are we stewarding them? What about our church? Are we stewarding that responsibility well? What about, you knew I'd go here, gospel? Have you ever considered yourself a steward of the gospel? I mean, that's a gift that we have been given. What are we doing? When we consider gifts, what do we generally tend to do? We focus on what we're being given. What's in the box? When I tear this paper off, what's in it? What's in it? What's in it? That's like our focus. We focus on what it is. God's focus is not on what it is, it's what are you going to do with it? The amount of money or stuff or things that we have in our life is not nearly as important. What is our attitude towards the resource? I just listed some of them. That's not all of them, right? Our finances, our relationships, our talents and abilities, our health, time, relationships, church, right? All of these things are resources that we all have in our lives. Are we Putting them in the bank? Do we see these things in our lives as a way to gain security, improve our lifestyle, serve self, or do we see them as a way to serve others, assist someone, or word that scares us, evangelize, right? Verse 30 and 31 in chapter 16 here that we just read. This is the end of the story, and this is so stewardship seems to be the principle that Jesus is speaking of initially when he's talking about the difference between the rich and the poor man. And listen, all the Pharisees heard when he's talking about differences between the rich and the poor, they're just seeing money. This guy had money, this guy didn't. This guy was righteous, this guy wasn't. This guy had it all. That means he was being blessed. This guy had problems, so obviously he was cursed. And because he was cursed, that means what did he do or what did his father do for him to deserve that? See the thinking? So Jesus is really taking that whole idea, this concept that they had of your station in life reflects God's favor. And Jesus is saying, you've got that completely back. Completely back. We have a hard time, I believe, and I do think this is a human condition, not strictly American. We have a hard time looking at where we are in life and not thinking that's a consequence where we are. We struggle with that. And part of that's because we do what Paul said is foolishness. We compare ourselves amongst ourselves, right? We look at someone and say, well, they're doing well off. God, what must be blessing them? And we even use that phrase, right? We have something come into our life and say, boy, I'm really blessed by it. Well, God really brought me a blessing. I'm not saying that's wrong. I just don't want that to get in our minds as this is the result, the consequence of something. You see where I'm going with that? It's easy for us to do. Jesus is saying, look, you need to look past your physical circumstance, your position, your station, prestige, your power, your wealth, or lack of all of those things. It does not matter. It goes back to Luke 15. God's love is unconditional. He loves you the same whether you're here in the physical realm or whether you're here. And His grace has been extended to everyone equally. I mean, we look at this guy in the story, the rich man, what? He had the same prophets. He had the same access to Scripture. He had the same access to the gospel, to the understanding of who God is and what He does that the poor man did. The poor man accepted grace. The rich man didn't. He already had what he needed, or what he thought he needed. People who choose to ignore or reject or disbelieve the written word will not be easily convinced. The Bible said that they're willfully ignorant. Know what that translates to? Dumb on purpose. Willfully ignorant. I think I'm making this up. 2 Peter 3:5 says they willfully ignore this. That long ago heavens and earth were brought from the water and through water by the word of God. King James actually says willfully ignorant. Why would you make that choice? It's an intentional choice. You understand that that's saying, look, we know, we're still choosing to ignore this. We're choosing to say that God does not exist, that God didn't create things, that, right, we're just here because it rained for a gajillion years on a puddle of mess. You're never going to convince me of that. It doesn't make sense. That's being willfully ignorant. The rich man in this story was willfully ignorant. He knew. He had the same access to the scripture that the poor man did. He made his choice. Here's what's interesting. He does have a little bit of compassion for his brothers now. Right? He doesn't change his attitude towards Lazarus or their arrogance. He still wants to be served. He still wants to be catered to, right? Bring some relief. But it's interesting because he's talking to Abraham in this, and instead of saying, look, I made the wrong choice. It's obvious I messed up. Is there any way to gain relief? No, he's even ordering Abraham, look, go tell Lazarus to come and bring me something to bring me relief. And then when Abraham says, no, that's not going to work, he does have a little compassion and he thinks about his brothers. He said, okay, well, look, send him back to talk to my brothers. Again, he's given orders, right? Abraham says, look, they have the same thing you had. If you didn't listen to Moses and the prophets, what makes you think they're going to? And then he says this, and consider who is speaking and what's already happened. He says, look, even if someone returns from the dead, is resurrected, and appears to them, they're not going to believe. You understand, Jesus had already resurrected Lazarus. The Pharisees didn't believe. Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem, knowing that just in a short time he was going to die and be resurrected. And guess what? Still not going to believe. What can you do with that? To witness a resurrection, will not believe. Actually wrote notes to that. If they do not hear Moses and the prophets, neither will they be convinced someone should rise. And that the only thing that can bring this man's 5 brothers to salvation would be for them to hear and heed the Word of God and respond. Moses and the prophets would have been clearly understood by Jesus' listeners. They had access to that. That's what they would have been listening to every Sabbath in the synagogue. Moses and the prophets. This is what's read to them. I say this without offending everybody. I don't know if it will or not. I'm just miracles, signs and wonders, not produce. And we look at Jesus' ministry and we say, well, he did all of these miracles, and look at all the people that he brought to himself. That's a misunderstanding of why he did that. He did not do miracles so people would be saved. He did perform miracles so people would understand that he is exactly who he says he is. That's the purpose of them. It wasn't to draw people in. It was to prove to them his authority. I think I'm making that up. John 5:36. Says, I have a greater witness than John. This is Jesus speaking. He said, I have a greater witness than John, my teachings and my miracles. He said, the Father gave me these works to accomplish, okay, his teachings and his miracles. God gave those works to accomplish, and they prove that he sent me. Teachings and miracles. Miracles today, signs and wonders, those things, it's proof of Jesus, not salvation. Remember when Jesus did all the miracles and he's multiplying food and he's feeding thousands and the multitudes keep chasing him around? Remember they got in a boat to get away from him? They sailed to the other side, and the people all went around this, and they met him over there. He couldn't get away from them. And he even said, and this is in John chapter 6, he said, look, some of you are here just for the handout. This is my summary, okay? Not how Jesus said it. But that's what he was getting at. He said, look, you're here because you want to be fed, because I'm doing these miracles. He said, you're not getting it. I am the bread of life. That's what you need to be feeding on. So Jesus would teach in order to kind of thin down the crowd. He didn't want them misunderstanding that it's just about a handout, about a meal, or see what I'm saying? He said, my teachings and my miracles are here to prove that I am Messiah. I'm the one you've been waiting for. Waited for. God's Word. This is the back half of this passage. I want to talk about the importance of God's Word. Because that's what he's saying. He's saying, look, God's Word is important. That's what can bring them to salvation. It wouldn't matter if somebody was resurrected and came and told you about this. You might have an emotional experience from that, but it's not going to change. It's not going to transform. God's Word, necessary. Necessary. Matthew 4:4 says, a man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. John 6:63 says, it is the Spirit who gives life. The flesh is no help at all. The words that I have spoken to you are spirit, life. God's word's necessary. It's authoritative. His word has authority. Isaiah 66 says, but this is the one to whom I will look, he who is humble and contrite in spirit and trembles at my word. His word is effective. It doesn't come back void. It doesn't come back empty. It fulfills and accomplishes his purposes. Isaiah 55:9-11 says, for as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, my thoughts than your thoughts. As the rain and the snow come down from heaven and do not return there, but water the earth, making it bring forth and sprout, giving seed to the sower, bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goes out from my mouth. It shall not return empty, but it shall accomplish that which I purpose, to succeed in the thing for which. Why did he say? Bring people to salvation. To bring people to an understanding that Jesus is who he says he is. He is Messiah. He is the one who has brought us redemption and salvation. Through that active love translates to grace. We have to do. You know, my words, this is a hard thing for us to swallow sometimes. My words are not effective. My words are not necessary. My words are not authoritative. God's word. If you're ever in a situation and you're not sure what to say, I'd recommend quoting God's word in some form. That's where the power is. You know, without it, we do what we have what it says in Scripture is a form of godliness but denying its power. Now, you can memorize all the Scripture you want, but if you don't know the author, you have to finish that. God's word is sufficient. Sufficient to overcome disbelief. The good news is the power of God to bring salvation. Romans 1:16 says, for I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone. Faith comes from hearing, hearing his word. His word is eternal. The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of God, His word is everything ours isn't. His word is necessary, authoritative, effective, sufficient, eternal. We fumble over words and think, man, I never say the right thing at the right time. Right. Don't. We get in a situation, and what do we, when it's difficult or uncomfortable or awkward, what do we think or say? I just don't know what to say. Right? God always knows to say. His words change. Say this, His words changed. Testimony is good. Example in our life is both important things, and I think they need to be a part of our lives, and they need to be part of as we tell others. Got to go back. We tell people what Jesus has done in our lives or how He's transformed us, but we don't tell them who He is according to His word. We're missing us. I'm almost done. We are going to have communion here. So I have two Bibles. You always get nervous when I bring two Bibles up. Remember from last week, Jesus taught love in itself does not save. Love does not remove the poison. Grace, the active part of His love, one of the active parts, what does. His love is unconditional. Grace is all we have to do. Now, as we're looking at stewardship, the things that we've been given by God, which starts your list, right? It's everything that you have. Been given grace, and we've been given the gospel. Right. Father God, you are so good. I thank you for the truth of your word, that it does not change, that it does not return to you void, that your word accomplishes all that you desire it to, fills your purposes. God, our desire is to fulfill your purpose. Father, we get in your way. So we just ask that you would help us find the areas of our life that we have not given over to you, still hanging on to, those things that we're scared to submit to you, to lay at your feet. God, we know that your plans are so far above our plans, ways, your thoughts. God, I pray that you'd help us not rely on our own strength, our own understanding, that we would lean on your strength, your courage, your diligence, your wisdom, your understanding. We thank you for the power, strength of your word. Help us to be good stewards of everything. We look at every aspect. Help us serve you. Thank you so much for your love. We thank you. Praise you. So one of my favorite times